All right, so we have two presenters here for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Our first presenter is going to start in just a moment, and then we'll have a second presenter who we will introduce shortly. So for our first presenter, Ms. Caroline Waters is going to be talking with you a little bit today about the EOF program. The EOF program in the state of New Jersey is a support program that assists students in their journey through college. This begins with a summer institute, which not only helps students start college early, but also provides the tools necessary to ensure a successful first year. Caroline Waters has worked for the EOF program at Rutgers-Camden for 29 plus years. She works with first-generation college students and their families to help students obtain a college education. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with her presentation and get started.
Thank you, Mrs. McGill. Thank you, Haddon Heights, Mr. Fisher, and Mrs. Posito, and all the wonderful people, Ms. Mendenhall, and all the wonderful people that continue to bring me back to speak at Haddon Heights. This is near and dear to my heart, to help first-generation college students realize their aspirations to obtain a college degree. So again, my name is Caroline Waters. I've been working for the EOF program for almost 30 years. I was also an EOF student in this same program many, many, many years ago. So again, working for them, it's a privilege. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to talk to you about the EOF program is explain what the EOF program actually is and how students can apply. Next slide, Ms. McGill.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. Just a second.
Sure.
It won't change slides.
So what is EOF? EOF is part of the state financial aid system. So when students complete the FAFSA, which is the first thing the seniors will be doing starting on October 1st in about a month, the first thing that they do is they fill out the FAFSA gets submitted, the state and federal government take a look at what has been submitted, the income guidelines and all of that. They look at everything and then decide what you are eligible for. If your student is eligible for state grants like EOF and TAG, this is where we come in. And so that is how the process starts with that FAFSA. It is crucial, crucial, crucial for parents to please make sure that the FAFSA, your student files that FAFSA October 1st. Here is our team in Camden. So the EOF program, Dr. Marsha Besong is our Assistant Chancellor. Miss Randy Ferguson is our Assistant Director. Mr. Keelish is a Program Coordinator. And there are three counselors, myself, Mr. Jones, and Miss Sarah Blackman. Move on to the next slide. That's our team. Of course, Camden is a very big, small school, big name, small school. What I will present to you tonight doesn't just reflect Rutgers-Camden, but the state of New Jersey as a whole. So whether you're going to Rowan, Rutgers, Stockton, it's all the same system because it's the state system. So the EOF structure. What we have is we have a 5-week summer institute. The summer institutes vary across the state depending on what college you decide to go to. Some colleges do 6 weeks, some colleges do 3. It depends on what college. Everyone must do a summer institute though. The students will take academic classes, so they take the placement test, then whatever they test into, they will take that summer. So they might take English, they'll take whatever math, and then there might be a 3-credit course. So they actually start college early. They earn credits early. And the summer institutes are completely paid by that summer program. There is no cost to the student or the parents. The students also get one-on-one counseling. So we're something, I always joke, we're something like high school guidance counselors, but at a college level. Our job is to graduate our students and make sure that they get to that stage. So we provide academic counseling, sometimes personal counseling, giving them resources, and also career counseling. What do you want to be when you grow up type of thing? And then we go from there. We provide tons of workshops for students, for freshmen, for example, study skills, how to write great research papers, time management, different topics like that we offer in the summer and then during the academic year to ensure that they have a successful first summer. The Summer Institute is also a transition from high school to college. So we work on leaving the high school environment and transitioning to this new college environment, which can be a culture shock for students, but that's what the Summer Institute is for. So again, students get the opportunity to earn credits. So they start college early. They have access to a counselor who will walk them from day one when they walk in our doors. They have a counselor that will walk them on through graduation 4 to 5 years later. They have access to EOF workshops and programs that are designed exclusively for our students only. We are a very small knit program. So right now, even in Camden, we have about 300 students, but many programs across the state, some programs have 500 students, some programs have 1,000. So it depends on what school you go to. But the intent and the vision of EOF is always the same no matter where you go. Again, in Camden, we're a small knit program, so that gives us an advantage of having that one-on-one. So the first process that you will have to take, again, this works for any institution in the state of New Jersey. So you go and you apply to the college. So for us, you go to the Rutgers admissions and apply. Once you read through, you can read through and look to see if you financially qualify. The state always has a table that lets you know how many people in a household. This is the maximum income that you can make in order to be eligible for EOF. That is on the New Jersey Higher Education Department website. It's also on our website. Most EOF programs have it on their websites as well. So you can look at now and see, okay, do we qualify? We should apply. Once you apply to the college, so I'm going to use Rutgers as an example. Once you apply to Rutgers, on the application, it's going to give you information about EOF and ask, do you want to be considered? You will then click on that box and say yes, finish the application. And as soon as you submit the application, you'll get the link to the EOF application to then go ahead and apply. So then moving forward, you'll have to make sure that it will be your child, has to make sure that they continue to check their website, their emails for information from the admissions office and information from the EOF office. The reason why we say that is because the admissions office has to make sure, and again, all admissions offices at all colleges in the state, they do the pre-screening. They have to make sure that the student is eligible for EOF before they submit a list to their EOF programs on campus. So there's like a pre-qualification. They may ask for documents. So if a student says, well, my parents are on Social Security, so there is no employment in our home. Well, the university is going to ask you for proof of that so that they can make sure that you in fact qualify for the program, that you're within the income guidelines. If a student says, well, my parents didn't work last year, okay, there has to be proof of unemployment benefits and things like that. So you have to make sure that you submit whatever documents the university is asking for or the EOF program is asking for in order to pre-qualify students. Next slide, please. Okay. This is our timeline, and this is so crucial. If you want to take a picture of the screen, please do so. The administration at Haddon Heights has this PowerPoint. You're more than welcome to ask for it so that you can take a look at it later on. So this is the timeline that we follow. October 1st, the HESA, the Department of Education, opens the application, the FAFSA application. That is when your child applies for the financial aid, October 1st. November 1st, colleges open up their admissions applications. So that's when students need to apply. You can put up to 10 colleges on that FAFSA each month. So November 1st is what we call the early application time. So if you apply by November 1st, you will get an answer by December 1st. That's what it means by early. If you apply by December 1st, you will certainly hear an admissions decision around February, at least February, beginning of March. So of course, it's best that you apply early. During the time from January to March, this is where the EOF programs are now looking at all of the applications and deciding who they're going to accept. So it's not just automatic admissions, because we look at the need of the student. We look at, do they have an academic need? We look at their grades. We look at their SAT scores. We look at everything. And so we're making decisions from January to March. Now, mind you, January to March, the students are thinking of trip, they're thinking of prom, they're thinking of graduation. They're not really thinking about the colleges, but the colleges are thinking about them. So at this point, we're also asking for, hey, we need this document. Hey, you forgot this signature. we need you to do this. And so once we make the decisions by the end of March, students will start getting emails from the colleges saying, offering them admissions. Now we're looking at March and May, March through May. Kids are thinking of prom. So parents, you have to make sure that you continue to put in their heads, hey, did you look at your email? Did you see a letter from the college? Did you see letters from HESA, which is Higher Education Student Assistance Authority? That is where the FAFSA is housed. Did you get any emails? Are they asking for documents? You have to keep asking, because at the end of the day, no documents, no financial aid. That will hold up the entire process. There is no financial aid, whether it's grants, loans, there is nothing until all the documents requested by the state of New Jersey are submitted. Same thing with the schools. If you do not submit the documents to the schools, there is no financial aid. You have to make sure that all the documents are submitted. So once we offer admissions from March to May, May 1st is the final day that we accept a student saying, I accept to come to Rutgers-Camden. Now, what we've seen in the past is that students will wait until June when they're graduating and say, hey, I want to come to your program. However, if you look at the timeline here, Summer Institute orientation is in June. And it's in June before students graduate, because we start in the beginning of July. So we do orientation at the beginning of June, preparing students, because if hopefully this pandemic is over, we have our Summer Institute. Our Summer Institute is usually residential. So we want students on our campus ready to go first week in July. So we have to have everything done in June while they're thinking about graduation. So as you can see, this timeline works the same way for all colleges in the entire state. We're all doing the same thing at this same time. Keep that in mind. July, first week of July is a Summer Institute, which takes 5 weeks for us. So our program coordinator is Mr. Aquiles. If you have any questions, you can certainly contact him. But just keep in mind, parents, October 1st, complete that FAFSA. That starts this whole process to determine your eligibility for the program. November 1st, colleges open their admissions. So your child needs to apply starting November 1st. And then you start waiting for those emails. What is the state looking for? What are the colleges looking for? And then submit all the documents necessary. College admissions and offers for admissions begin between March and May. And then by June, we're all done accepting. So if a student comes in June and says, oh, I want to come to Rutgers, and we've closed our admissions, they can certainly come to Rutgers if they're regularly admitted, but they wouldn't get through with EOF because we would already be closed. So again, please adhere to these deadlines. The other thing I'd like to mention, and I'm sure the next presenter will mention, is that state financial aid stays in the state of New Jersey. So if your child is eligible for TAG and EOF, which are the two state grants, they can't use this money like going to Temple, Delaware, or anywhere else. State money stays in the state. So this is only for students who are going to go to school in the state of New Jersey. So just wanted to make you aware of that. So I will hang on after the next presenter and hang around for a while in case anyone has any questions. Thank you so much for your time.
I would like to thank Mrs. Waters for sharing her expertise and time with us. Thank you so much. If we have any questions about EOF, could we contact you directly or?
Absolutely, absolutely. I see there's a question in the chat. Does this work for, I'm assuming that's Camden County College. EOF exists in every public institution in the state of New Jersey, including some private like Princeton. So yes, it does include all of the community colleges as well. And their summer institutes are called bridge programs. But yes, they do have it as well. And this will be for summer of 22, yes. So the seniors that are here now and applying for colleges in November, yes.
Okay. Thank you again for spending.
You're welcome.
Part of your presentation time with us. And is it okay if we, if someone has a direct question, if you have your email address, is that okay if we get that out, Mrs. Waters?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you again. And our next presenter, who's been with us for about 20 years, is Mr. John Accavelli. He's worked for HESA for various universities. And I'm going to give it to you, Mr. Accavelli.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Obviously, you know the situation. I'm in Mr. Fisher's office right now, but I assume that somebody has my PowerPoint and they're going to control it. Oh, there it is.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, so that means I can control it.
No, I can. Just let me know when you want to go to the next slide.
Well, let's go to slideshow from the beginning first.
Okay.
You want to hit slideshow and then hit from beginning.
Yes. Okay.
All right. And so, all right, you did that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No, from the beginning. There you go.
There we go. Perfect. Okay. So for all the folks out there who are listening to me, as you can see, the title of my presentation is Financial Aid 101, Demystifying the Process. As Michelle has mentioned to you, I have well over 40 years in both admissions and financial aid, all in the state of New Jersey. I retired from my position as Dean of Enrollment Management at Stockton a good 2.5 years ago, and have continued to do these presentations all over the state for many, many high school districts. So as the title mentions to you, demystifying the process, we have done that for decades. But in this presentation, we have a second goal. We not only want you to understand the process, we also want to provide you with the tools and the resources that both HESA, and I'll talk about HESA a little bit in a second, and the federal government give to all you students. So I have dual goals here. One, to let you know how the process works, but number two, to provide you with the information that you need. And I know that Michelle will put this presentation out on the school's website or whatever so that you can see this and you can refer back to it when you're actually in the process of filing the FAFSA, or after you filed the FAFSA, doing the different things you want to do to complete the financial aid process, not only at the schools that you apply to, but make sure that all of the information that the state of New Jersey and the feds need is there and is proper for you. So with that, I'm going to ask Michelle to go to the next slide. You heard Carolyn mention this. I'm going to mention it as well because I am here on behalf of them. You're going to hear an acronym. That acronym is called HESA, H-E-S-A-A. What it stands for is Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. It is the only state agency with the sole mission of providing students with the financial and informational resources needed to pursue their degree beyond high school. So whatever that degree is, whether it's an associate degree, a full degree, a baccalaureate degree, no matter what, we're here to help you. And on this slide, you can see at the bottom the many, many publications that HESA provides, both in print and obviously online. So I just wanted to make you aware of where I'm coming from and how important HESA is to this entire process, as you will hear as we go from slide to slide. Michelle, let's go to the next slide. Before I get into the real nitty-gritty of the actual application process, I wanted to take one slide and maybe 2 or 3 minutes and allow you to look at financial aid from a completely different perspective. I want you to think about what the goals of a financial aid office are so you better understand financial aid. And believe me, after 4 decades of being in the business, I can honestly tell you that every financial aid office you go to, I don't care where it is, it could be Camden County College, it could be Princeton, it could be Rutgers, it could be Kalamazoo, wherever you go, those financial aid offices are dedicated to helping their students reduce the cost of a college education. Well, how do they do that? Well, number one, as you can see on the slide, the first thing they have to do is they have to evaluate the family's ability to pay for educational costs. And there's only one surefire way of doing that. That's by the family filing the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. And as Caroline mentioned, you can begin that process in your senior year after October 1st. And I always tell students, somewhere between October 1st and no later than Thanksgiving. That should be your goal in filing your financial papers. Do not go beyond that. If you see yourself being tardy and you haven't filed it and we go past Thanksgiving, understand you're getting yourself late in the process and you're not doing yourself any favors. Number two, if you're coming at financial aid from the financial aid officer's perspective, we are there to distribute limited resources in an equitable manner. Let me tell you what the key word in that sentence is. A lot of you think it's equitable. It isn't. It's limited. There's not enough money to go around. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, an excellent article was in the Wall Street Journal where they took a random number of students who had filed the FAFSA, and therefore they knew what their expected family contribution was, and they also knew what schools they were going to. When they looked at that sample, they were able to determine mathematically that the state and the federal government would have to have 3 times more money than they presently do to cover all the need that is shown on a FAFSA. I hope everybody understands what I just said. 3 times as much. They give out over $1 billion. I think the actual number is 1.1 or 1.2 billion. They would need 3 times that to cover dollar for dollar what the FAFSA is showing the need for all those families would be. So again, that financial aid office and that financial aid officer you're dealing with is trying as best they can to distribute the resources, whether those resources are from the state, whether they're from the federal government programs, or whether they're from the college itself. But they're trying to distribute it as equitably as they possibly can. Number 3, you may hear these words, and I want you to be familiar with them. Every financial aid officer is trying to provide a balance of gift aid and self-help aid. Well, what do they mean when they use the term gift aid? All they're really talking about there are all the different grants and scholarships that might be available to you. That's gift aid. When you hear the term self-help, what they're talking about there are all the different college loans that are available, but they're also talking about campus employment or the federal work-study program. So just keep that in mind. And then finally, remember, the financial aid office is there to implement both federal and state regulations that govern their programs. So therefore, you will find that these financial aid offices are on a very regular basis, they are audited. They want to make sure, the federal government wants to make sure, and the state wants to make sure that these millions of dollars that they are in charge of and they are administering are being done the way they want it to be done by their rules and regulations. So if you hear that a particular financial aid counselor or a particular school is asking you for information, they're not trying to hassle you. They're just trying to make sure that they're giving the money away in the proper way, because if they didn't, the feds and the state aren't going to recognize it. So they're really trying to help you. So it may on the front seem like a hassle. It's not a hassle. They're just trying to secure the money for you as best they can. Okay, I promised 1 slide and 2 or 3 minutes of that. Let's now get into the real nitty-gritty of financial aid from the student and the parent's perspective. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, a very simple way of remembering financial aid. 4 sources, 4 types. Pretty simple. When you're thinking financial aid, if you think 4 sources, 4 types, let me show you what I mean. What are the 4 sources? Well, the college or university that you're going to attend, the federal government with all of its programs, the state of New Jersey, which, as I showed you a couple of slides ago, is Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, or HESA. And then 4th, outside organizations. Sometimes we call it private aid. Let's start with that one. Let's simplify this for you as well. When you think private scholarships, I want you to think local and national. So for any private scholarships that you'd like to get involved with, local and national. So let's say that there is a local Lions Club or a local Kiwanis Club in the Haddon Heights area, or there's some other local charity or scholarship fund. Your expert is your high school counselor in this case. So for the local scholarships, you go to your counselor because they'll know, and they'll actually have it posted most times on the high school website as well. but there are ways of looking at national private scholarships, outside organizations that are national. And there's a site called FastWeb, FASTWEB, fastweb.com, where you can go. It's a free service. You can fill out a profile, and they will run your profile as a student against literally hundreds of national private scholarships. So again, 4 sources, and that final one, that private one, can be broken down into local and national. Now, we're going to go through all of the others as we go through the slides, but next to it, you can see the types of aid. 4 sources, 4 types. So what are the 4 types? Grants, scholarships, and yes, there is a difference between the two. I'll go through that in a second. Employment opportunities, and all the different college loans. What's the difference between a grant and a scholarship? Well, that's pretty easy. 99% of the time, if it is merit-based, and when I say merit-based, whether it's academic, whether it's athletic, whether you're bringing some particular talent to that school really wants, that's a scholarship. But a grant is usually 99% of the time need-based. So you filed your FAFSA, you showed a need, and that is a need-based, that's a grant. I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to make up a fictitious student so that you understand the difference between the two. Let's go back to that slide. We're not the net price calculator yet. There we go. And I want to show you the difference between a grant and a scholarship. Let's say that you're a very good athlete, and we're going to say for sake of argument, we're going to say you're a really good basketball player. And Rider University comes to see you. It's a private school up in New Jersey, up near the Trenton area. So Rider comes to see you, and the coach says, you know, you're a very good player. I want to offer you a scholarship. Now, they may offer you a full scholarship. They may offer you a partial scholarship. In my example, we're going to say they offered you a partial scholarship. Great. You're interested in the school. You apply to the school. You even file your FAFSA. When your FAFSA comes to the financial aid office at Rider University, they see that you also show need. So the coach has already offered you a certain amount of scholarship money. Now the financial aid offices, which is in charge of need-based aid, they want to give you a Rider grant and aid. So as they put your package together, you can have both a scholarship, same school, you can have a scholarship, and you can have a Rider grant and aid. That would be the same at Villanova. That could be the same at Rutgers. That could be the same at, well, it can't be the same at Stockton. It's a Division III school. But you get the idea where you can get an academic scholarship, but then also, or an athletic scholarship, and also show need and get a grant. That's the difference between the two. So remember, grants, need-based, scholarship, merit-based. Also understand that employment can be, not always, but can be a part of the financial aid package that the school puts together for you. There is federal money, and it's called the Federal Work-Study Program, but every one of the schools, every school in New Jersey also has money of their own, which we call campus employment. And as a matter of fact, what you will find throughout the state of New Jersey, it's a 1/3, 2/3 split. 1/3 on federal work-study, 2/3 on the school's own college employment program. So any school that I give an example to, whether it's Rutgers, whether it's Seton Hall, whether it's Stockton or College of New Jersey, it doesn't matter. They would all show you about the same thing. 1/3 federal work-study, 2/3 their own. So again, those are the sources and the types of aid. Now, let's go to the next slide. Remember what I said, folks. We're both going to go through the process, but we're also going to give you tools and sites to go to that will help you throughout the process. This is the first one of those. It's called Net Price Calculator. Back in the 2008-2009 year, the federal government passed a regulation, and that regulation said that all institutions that receive Title IV funding, Title IV is the fancy legal term for federal financial aid, all schools receiving Title IV must have a net price calculator on their website. All right, so they all have it. You can see I'm using Rutgers as an example here. I could use Seton Hall, I could use anybody. They all have it. You have to. You lost your federal eligibility. What I have found through the years is that because this was imposed, because this was mandated by the federal government, you're going to find a wide variety of net price calculators. You're going to find some that are just wonderful. They're brilliant. They're very, very well done. And others, not so much. But I would tell you that once you're down to the final 4 or 5 schools that you're going to be looking at, you do want to go out on their website and see what the costs would be. The whole reason the federal government started Net Price Calculator was to help the student and their parents figure out what the actual bottom line figure would be for the student. And that's why they created this. So again, one of those things to keep in mind, Net Price Calculator. Let's go on to the next one. Here is another tool, and this is one that I greatly endorse. It is from the federal government. People who know me, and I've been doing this for 20 years, more than 20 years, well, 20 years here at Haddon Heights, but over 35 years throughout these presentations. When I need to be, I'm very critical of what the federal government does. This is not one of those times. This is one of the times when they get praised, because the college scorecard, I find, especially as someone with a background both in admissions and financial aid, I find the college scorecard to be a very, very helpful tool. Now, you can see at the bottom of the screen, you can go directly to collegescorecard.ed.gov and go right into it. Why do I like this so much? I like it because it puts together some very pertinent information about the different schools that you may be looking at. Now, this was put together for financial aid purposes, but I will tell you this. I think this is much more effective a tool when you're in the admission stage than it is for financial aid. So if you're in that early stages of looking at schools, let's say you're looking at about 10, 20 schools, just looking at them in general. You're not ready to apply yet, but you're looking at schools. Please go out to College Scorecard and put every one of those schools up to get this type of data. And let me go to the next slide, because I want to show you how you can do this. You can bring one up, or you can bring a multitude of schools up so you can compare them. In my example, I have 4 schools showing here. If I wanted to, I'm pretty sure I can put as many as 8 on the screen. So if you're looking at schools, you want to compare how they come through. And I think the information that is on here, you can see for yourself. I won't take up time going step by step, but you can see the type of things that they're asking are very, very important to both parents and students. And I think they hit on what the true value of that school and of that school's education would be for you in your particular life. Okay? That's why I think College Scorecard is a very important one, a good source for you to remember and use, especially in the early admission stage, more so than in the financial aid stage. Okay, enough about College Scorecard. Let's go to the next slide. All right, this is the nitty-gritty of it. How to make college more affordable. One thing we know, if you're going to college, I don't care if it's a 2-year school, a 4-year school, a public, a private. It could be Princeton, it could be your local county college, it could be a tech school after you graduate from Haddon Heights. Wherever you go, we know one thing. If you're going to get aid, you must file the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA. Without filing a FAFSA, you get nothing. Nothing. As a matter of fact, let's say a school came to you and said, you're a great athlete, I want to give you a full ride. By NCAA regulations, even though they want to give you a full scholarship, you still have to file a FAFSA. So if you're going to college, get into your brains, you want to file that FAFSA. It starts October 1st of your senior year. And like I said before, in my humble opinion, even though this is not official, you want to get that financial aid form filed no later than Thanksgiving. If you see yourself starting to butt up to that, buckle down, get that thing out of there. Now, for many of the students listening to me this evening, you may be looking at very high cost, highly competitive institutions, especially in the East Coast, okay? A school like, I don't know, Villanova, Penn, Princeton, Holy Cross, Boston College. If you are looking at these schools, besides the FAFSA, they're also going to want you to file another financial aid application called CSS Profile. CSS stands for College Scholarship Service. Yeah, it's the same people who take care of the SATs. Something that many of these schools feel is much more detailed than the FAFSA. And so it's called CSS Profile. And as you can see on my screen, it's not free. The federal one, the free application for federal student aid, yeah, that's free. This one is not. First school, $25. Every school therein, an additional $16. So if you are going off to a Villanova, or you are going off to a University of Notre Dame, or you're going to Stanford or Duke, yes, more likely than not, they're asking you for a CSS profile as well. And you may say to yourself, well, why do they want that? They want that because before they give away their own grant and aid money, they want to make sure they're giving it away to the students they want it to get to. And they feel that the federal application does not ask the detailed information that they need, okay? So again, the more expensive and the more competitive the school is that you're looking to attend, the more propensity there will be for that school to also use CSS Profile. Does Temple use it? No, they don't. Does Rutgers use it? Nope. Does Seton Hall use it? Nope. How about Stockton? Nope. So you get the idea. The more expensive, the more competitive, there's more of a tendency for them to use CSS Profile as well. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And of course, this is what the top of it looks like. Remember, you're filling it out for the 22-23 academic year. What should you have in front of you before you attempt to file the application? Well, there's really three things. One you have to do, and the others you just have in front of you. Before actually filing the FAFSA on the web, because everything is electronic, that means we're going to have to develop, this is a legal document after all, we're going to have to develop a legal electronic signature. And that's what an FSA ID is. You need one for the student, and you need one for the parent. Not both parents, but just one. One for the student, one for the parent. It takes about 5 minutes or less if you're pretty astute technologically. But you get this FSA ID before you actually tackle filling out the FAFSA on the web. Now, because of something called prior year, when you fill out a 22-23 FAFSA, that assumes that everyone who's listening to me, of course, is a senior. Okay, when you go to fill it out, they want you to use the 2020 federal tax return. Not the 2021, which we'll be filling out in about 2 months, but the 2020. Well, 99.5%, if not 100%, of all the people listening to me this evening, if you were going to file a tax return in 2020, you've already done it. Even if you filed for a late thing, which you can sometimes, you would have filed it already. Which means that the vast majority of you are filing your FAFSA with a completed 2020 tax return. And because that's the case, I want to remind you that as you're filling it out, once they see that you filled in the bubble electronically that says, yeah, this is a completed return, you can either put the numbers from that return in yourself, or you can use something called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. I am here to tell you that when filling out a 22-23 FAFSA, and you're doing it from a completed tax return, do not put the numbers on there yourself. You tell them on that form, yep, you get it through the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. I'm not putting them in. You're them from the Data Retrieval Tool. Why am I so emphasizing that? Number one, I don't want you to make an error. Number two, because the federal government likes to do audits on people, they call it verification of data. That's their fancy word, verification of data. They're auditing you, okay? But if they see that the numbers that you put on the FAFSA came directly from the IRS, there's a far less chance that you would be those students that they would select for the verification or audit process. That's why, okay? So keep that in mind when you're filing the FAFSA. Next slide. Why are you filling out a FAFSA? You are filling out a FAFSA so that they can determine what your expected family contribution is. This is a very important acronym, EFC. expected family contribution. And yes, folks, because I've been in financial aid since 1977, do the math, before we had computers, when I was trained as a young financial aid officer, I could do federal methodology by hand. I used to literally sit there with pen and pencil and go through it. So I have a very intimate knowledge of what they do on the computer when they massage the numbers that you send in to them to process your FAFSA, okay? And they're going to give you a range. That expected family contribution could be as small as 0, could go all the way up to 99999, okay? Obviously, if you have 99999, you're going to be a no need. But let's say you got a 0. You filled out the FAFSA, and that process, federal methodology, determined that the family cannot afford $1 towards your education. You are going to find that between the state, the feds, and the school itself, you're going to get a very, very good package. I can't guarantee every student it's going to be 100%, but I can guarantee you that it'll be at least 80% or more. And if it isn't, you can call them and say, somebody made a mistake, because they would have. But that's what's happening. When you file that FAFSA, the whole reason for filing it is to get the family's financial circumstances and come up with this thing that they call the expected family contribution, or EFC. Okay, I want to show you now how they're going to use this EFC in a second, but let's go to the next slide. Cost of attendance. So here you are, you filed your FAFSA, and now you have this EFC, and every school has what they call a cost of attendance. They have a lot of different costs of attendance. They have a cost of attendance for a commuting student. They have a cost of attendance for a student who lives on campus. They have a cost of attendance for someone from out of state. They have a lot of different costs of attendance. Remember this, the cost of attendance is a purely financial aid term. It is used for financial aid purposes. Your real bill that you will get each semester from your school will have things like tuition and fees, and if you live on campus, room and board on it. But as you can see, the cost of attendance also puts in other consumer expenses that both the state and the feds will allow. So for instance, since I retired from Stockton, I'm going to use them as an example. If I were in the financial aid office today at Stockton, they're going to use for in-state on campus, all right? For in-state on campus, they're going to use a cost of attendance right around $32,000, maybe $32,100, whatever it comes down to, cost of attendance. But if you get a bill from Stockton, it's going to have tuition and fees, and it's going to have the room and board because you're living in the resident halls, okay? Put those two together, and it comes out to about $25,000, $26,000, depending on your meal plan. So why are they using a $31,000 or $30,000 or $31,000 number? Same at Princeton, same at Rutgers, same at Seton Hall, same anywhere you go. Because the federal and state government recognizes and allows you to put more than just the immediate cost of the school. So that's why cost of attendance is different than the immediate cost of room and board, tuition, and fees. All right, next slide. This in a nutshell, this slide shows you how every school uses the FAFSA to develop a package for you. It's this simple. They take their cost of attendance, and in my slide, you can see in my example, I have a private school. In red, in blue, I have a state school. And in that yellow or mustard color, I have your two-year college, your community college. So in my example, we're going to say that this student, Johnny, has applied to 3 schools. He's applied to Seton Hall, that's a private university in the state of New Jersey. He applied to Stockton, that's the state college. And he also applied to his local county college. Since we're in Haddon Heights, that means Camden County Community College, okay? 3 schools. He and his family filed their FAFSA, and they got an expected family contribution. And for sake of argument, we're going to say that the expected family contribution that came back is $12,000. Now, let's take that. All that information went to Seton Hall. It went to Stockton, and it also went to Camden County Community College. Financial aid office at Seton Hall gets it. Seton Hall's cost of attendance for this year is right around, it might be off a little bit, but it's right around $67,000, $68,000 a year. Your EFC was $12,000. Well, 68,000 minus 12, that means that Seton Hall is doing the best they possibly can to put together a $56,000 package for you. Might not get there, but they're trying. Example number 2, you applied to Stockton. As we said, Stockton's about 32,000. Your EFC never changes, it's 12. 32 minus 12, 20,000. The financial aid office at Stockton is trying to put together a $20,000 package for you. Might not get there, but that's what they're trying to do. Third one, your local county college. You know what? Their cost of attendance is right around 12,000. Your expected family contribution was 12,000. Are you showing any need? No. So there you go. Same student, 3 completely different costs of attendance, 3 completely different results for the same student. Where the private school may be putting together a $50,000 plus package. The state school might be trying to put together a $20,000 package. At your local county college, might not be eligible for anything. We don't know. But that's how that works. That is the essence of financial aid. And it doesn't matter where you go. It could be Princeton. It could be Notre Dame. It could be Stanford. It could be any of those schools. Their financial aid office works on the same basic principles that I just showed you on this slide. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, we've gone through a couple of these tools and destinations. Here's another one that HESA put together, the New Jersey shopping sheet. Now this is kind of like a different slant, but it's very much like the federal one that I showed you way in the beginning, okay? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to give the family transparency. And so what they do with this New Jersey shopping sheet, and by the way, you can get to this through something called New Jersey FAMS, the Financial Aid Management System, which I'll be talking about 2 or 3 slides down the road. But the shopping sheet, again, tries to have you go through all the different phases of, okay, here's the school's cost of attendance. Here's what they gave you in grants and scholarships. Here's what they can give you in loans. What is the bottom line here? How much really has to come out of the family's finances, my finances as a student? So that's why the New Jersey shopping sheet exists. Again, another tool to use before you determine which school you're going to commit to. Which one gives me the best value? Okay, next slide. Now, types of aid. We're going to go through types of aid from the federal government, and then the next slide, we're going to do types of aid from the state of New Jersey. Well, what are the biggest types of aid from a grant standpoint from the federal government? The biggest of the ones from the federal is called the Pell Grant. Remember when I was showing you on the FAFSA, the EFC range? If you got a 0 EFC, you're going to be eligible for the highest level Pell Grant. And for this year, the highest level is $6,495. As a matter of fact, if you have a 0 EFC, most schools, not only will they offer you a Pell Grant, they're going to give you a little bit of what's called the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, or SEOG. It's campus-based federal money, but still. And as you can see there, it says up to $4,000. In practical terms, very rare that a student gets a $4,000 SEOG because they're trying to spread it around. Probably be another $1,000 or $2,000 because they're trying to spread it, they don't have enough. So if you were a 0 index, which means you're the highest need student, right from the feds alone, you've got a Pell Grant and an SEOG possibly waiting for you. Let's say you were also coming into school and you were in their school of education, but you were a high need student. You might get a teach grant from them as well. This is something to always remember when you're dealing with the federal government. Since the inception of all federal government programs, if you go back to 1970, 1971, and these things are illegally called Title IV funds. Title IV funds, that means federal programs, have always been meant for the highest need, lowest income students. Highest need, lowest income students. Some of you listening to my voice right now might not be in that category, and you might not be eligible for federal money. But as you will see on my next slide, Just because you're not eligible for feds doesn't mean you're not eligible for the state. And let's go to that next slide. The state of New Jersey through HESA, I know I'm a little prejudiced because I'm representing them right now, but the state of New Jersey through HESA does cover their college-bound students in ways that most states cannot. As a matter of fact, most experts in financial aid will tell you that when you compare the financial aid programs in the state of New Jersey with the financial aid programs around the country, easily New Jersey is in the top 3. Okay? Easily in the top 3. Let me prove that to you. Just as Pell Grant is the largest of the federal programs, in the state of New Jersey, the largest program is called TAG, T-A-G. It stands for Tuition Aid Grant. And you can see if you're full-time, you could get as little as $1,200. But if you were going to an expensive private school in the state of New Jersey and you were high need, you could get as much as $13,196. So there's a range depending on the school and the expense school that you're going to. But also there are other options for the student. As I go down further, I won't hit EOF because Caroline did that for you, but you can see NJ Stars. If you're a strong student, let's say you're graduating in the top 15% of your high school class, you could start school at your local county college and have Stars pay all of your tuition. So you could be going to school for the first 2 or 3 years and only be paying for fees, going back and forth, and fees in your books because tuition is covered for you. And then if you did well, you could then transfer to one of the senior institutions and get Stars too, up to $2,500 a year. One of the programs that I really like is at the bottom of this slide. It's only about maybe this is either the second or third year of its existence. The Community College Opportunity Grant, or CCOG. If you are a high need student, after getting any of the state or federal programs like Pell or TAG, if there is anything else that you need to have be covered because you are eligible for CCOG, it would be covered for you. It would be free. Okay? So especially for students in the state of New Jersey, I'm going to show you 2 more in the next slide, but especially for students in the state of New Jersey, if you are a high need student, you will never be able to use the excuse that I don't have enough money to go to college. It's not true, because if you filled your FAFSA out, you can see all these programs will cover you. You might not be able to go to the school of your choice, but you'll be able to start your education and start it with very little, if any, money. Okay? Got to remember that. Let's go to that next slide, because that has 2 more programs that are very new. Look at the 3+1 degree completion program. This is new for this year. Now, granted, most of the bona fide recognized 3+1 programs are housed at Rowan University. Rutgers has a few of them. Some of the other schools are slow, but they're getting there. But if you're in a bona fide 3+1 program, you can pay the tuition level of the community college for 3 years and only pay the senior institution costs in the 4th year. Talk about saving money. So let me use an example. One of the 3+1 programs at Rowan is a business 3+1. Well, if you were interested in business, completing your business degree, you could go off to Camden County Community College, pay Camden County rates for 3 years, even though in the 3rd year you're actually taking Rowan level your institution courses, and then only pay Rowan's cost in the senior year. Think about the thousands of dollars you're saving if you're in one of those 3+1 programs. And finally, here's another new program starting in the fall of 2022. So therefore, any of you out there who are seniors, you should be looking into this, because you'll be a freshman in the fall of 2022. And it's called the Garden State Guarantee. If after you fill out your FAFSA, it shows that your adjusted gross income, or the combination of your adjusted gross income and untaxed income, is at or below $65,000, your tuition and fees will be covered at all state colleges and universities. So whether it's Rutgers, whether it's NJIT, whether it's Ramapo, Montclair, you name them, if your adjusted gross income is below 65,000, your fees will be covered. It'll be covered for 4 straight years, as long as you make satisfactory academic progress. Now, if your income is slightly higher than 65, let's say it's 75,000, let's say it's 90,000, you won't get full tuition and fees like the people at 65 or below, but each school is required to put together a tier or structure. So whether they're going to cover 50% for all 4 years, whether they're going to cover 66% or 75%, and they'll have to publish that. So you talk about value, you really need to seriously look at higher education within the state of New Jersey. I know a lot of us want to go out of state. I get it. But if you're looking for value and you have schools like Rutgers and Rowan and the College of New Jersey and Montclair and Seton Hall all sitting there, and you would have a chance to get one of these programs, you'd be foolish not to look seriously at these. You're saving thousands of dollars, and over the course of 4 years, you're saving tens of thousands of dollars. Okay, next slide. I've alluded to this. Now I want to really attack it in the next 3 slides. NJFAMS, the New Jersey Financial Aid Management System. As Caroline mentioned to you in her presentation, when you file the FAFSA, it initially goes electronically to the federal processor. When the federal processor gets it, they massage your numbers and come up with an EFC, but then electronically, they send your information to the schools that you listed on there, but because your address is a New Jersey address, they automatically send your information to the state of New Jersey, to HESA. HESA takes your electronic information from the FAFSA and loads it onto the New Jersey Financial Aid Management System. So after you've filed your FAFSA, and it's been processed, and the feds have acknowledged that they've processed it, that next day, you're in the New Jersey FAMS system. I would tell you that once you are in there, you want to log in and create your username and password, because you're going to use the NJFAMS system for all 4 years of your undergraduate degree. You just are. The state of New Jersey announced this year that they are no longer sending any paper correspondence to their students. So remember what Caroline was telling you. What if the state of New Jersey needs more information from you? In the past, they'd send you something in the mail. Not now. You have to go out on FAMS. So I am going to tell you, not only are you going to create a New Jersey FAMS account, you're going to look at it at least once a week. Should look at it every day. It only takes 2 minutes or 2 seconds. But at least once a week, you're going to go out to New Jersey FAMS to make sure that they have your tag grant proper. They don't need extra information. Everything you need to know, New Jersey FAMS is going to be very important for you. Let's go to the next slide. A couple of more reasons why FAMS is important to you. You can actually, when you're out there, gives you the ability to put together a to-do list. You can view and update any school information, okay? You can apply online for any scholarships that might be available for you. And also just check on your awards, like I said before. Make sure the tag is, I'm eligible for tag and they have the right number and they have the right school for me for tag, okay? And it can even act as a reminder, as you can see down at the bottom, where it would say to you, you know what? We now have your information. We got last year's FAFSA, but you haven't filed this year's FAFSA yet. So it almost acts as a reminder to keep you moving ahead each year, because as you know, you have to file the FAFSA every year. So just some of the things that NJFAMS will do for you, and it will become a very important integral part of your financial aid process once the feds have processed your FAFSA. This is a go-to place that you will go and will be very helpful to you all 4 years as you're getting your aid and as you're moving towards getting your degree. Next slide. And the last one for access here. As you can see, it says to-do list. as I said, there's many functions. Once you get into NJFAMS, you can kind of play around in there and tool around with it, but you can really use it as a guide to remind you of different things that you would need to do. Not only for here, I'm using this as an example for the 22-23 year, but beyond that, for the 23-24 year, 24-25 academic year, it's there to help you and be a reminder, not just a reference point and information point, but also, like I said before, act as that to-do list. So again, NJFAMS, very important to remember it. You're going to be going into it once your FAFSA has been processed and the data has been sent to the state of New Jersey. Next slide. Okay, remember in past slides, we went through the federal programs and then we went through the state programs for both grants and scholarships. Now we're going to look at loans. And remember what I said way in the beginning. I want to simplify or demystify things. When you look at the loans, I'm going to make up what I call a John Yacovelli term. It makes it nice and easy to remember your college loans. First tier, second tier. What is your first tier loan? Your first tier loan is the Federal Direct Student Loan Program. Sometimes you'll hear it called the Stafford loan. Don't let that throw you off. You'll either hear Stafford loan or you'll hear Federal Direct, all the same. Okay? And what you can see here are the maximums for freshman through senior year. And these loans can come as either subsidized or unsubsidized. What's a subsidized loan? It's a loan that when you filed your FAFSA, you showed need on that FAFSA. And because you showed need, all or part of your loan will be subsidized, which means that while you're attending school, there will be no interest accrued on the subsidized portion of the loan. If you didn't show need, you can still get the loan. It's just going to be unsubsidized, either all of it or part of it. And what does that mean? It means the minute you take that loan out in your freshman year, interest begins to accrue, just like any other loan. For any of the parents listening to me out there, you've all had mortgages or car loans or other types of loans, and you know that the minute you sign off on that loan, the ticker starts, all right? Interest starts the second you sign a legal contract that says, I'm going to borrow this money, okay? So that's the difference, subsidized versus unsubsidized. Subsidized, interest is paid by the federal government while you're in school, just while you're in school. Unsubsidized, you've got both the interest, the accruing interest, and the principal that you have to pay upon graduation or termination of your college career. Okay, just remember that. Now, to parents, I will tell you this. This is a very strong opinion of mine. Any unsubsidized loan that you take, do your very, very best to pay that accruing interest on a monthly or quarterly basis. You do not want that unsubsidized loan to have the interest snowballing into it for 4 years. Trust me. All right? It helps you to control the loan. So whether it's this or whether it's any other loan that I'm about to show you on other slides, if it's unsubsidized and there's interest accruing while the student's in school, I'm here to advise you, okay? This is wisdom, folks. This is wisdom, not knowledge. Do your very best to pay that accruing interest. If you don't, it'll snowball in, and by the time the student's a senior, what you thought was a $30,000 loan could be $42,000 because the interest kept building and building. Or what you thought was a $20,000 loan is now $28,000. All right? Keep control of it and do the best you can, even if it's hard on you financially. Pay that accruing interest. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, you saw the maximums for the federal direct loan, Tier 1 loans. At many of the schools that you may be going to, that might not be enough, and you might need to get what we call an alternative or supplemental loan. I'm not a big fan of these loans, but they're out there. They can help you. The state of New Jersey has one. It's called NJ Class. The federal government has one called the PLUS program. See that PLUS? You know what that stands for? Parent Loan For undergraduate students, which means only the parent can take it out. The parent's the only one who can borrow on the federal one. It's one of the reasons why I like the NJ class a little bit better. Not only is the interest rate slightly lower, but this one gives you more versatility. With NJ class, either the parent can be the borrower or the parent can be a cosigner and make the student the borrower and the parent just the cosigner. Now, if you only have one child going to school, that might not be a big deal. But in most families, there might be 2 or 3 students who are going to go to school. And so that benefit or that parameter that NJ class gives could be very important to you, all right? Because as a parent, you don't want to get all gummed up on student number 1, then not be able to take loans out for student number 2 or student number 3. So if the student were the borrower in NJ class, it gives you that leverage. It gives you that flexibility to help not only the older student, but then the other one's coming down the line as well with an NJ class. If you were taking out a Federal Plus loan, it's only the parent that can take it out. You could financially get, blown out of the water with child number 1 and never be able to take an alternative or supplemental loan for child number 2 or child number 3. So keep that in mind. And finally, on this slide, you also see, besides class and Federal Plus, you see private educational loans. There are a lot of them out there. There's a very popular one out there now, Sallie Mae. A lot of people know who Sallie Mae is. Another one that's real popular across the nation is called SoFi, S-O, and a little dash F-I, SoFi. Also, for those of you who are baseball fans, Citizens Bank Park, where the Phillies play, well, Citizens Bank is big on college loans. So is Citibank, City Assist. There's a lot of them out there, private. I'm not a big fan of them. As a matter of fact, when I tell students or counsel students, I tell them, if you think you need a private educational bank loan to go to school, you might want to readdress what school you're going to, because you might be at a school that financially is over your head. I think that these private loans should only be used as one-shot, one-time deals if an emergency comes up. You should never, ever take private educational loans and think you're going to take them for all 4 or 5 years of your undergraduate degree. Because if you do, you are going to be under tremendous loan indebtedness, tremendous loan indebtedness. I'd like to keep you away from that. So keep that in mind as you're picking your schools. It's out there. It can be used. I think it's best used on a case-by-case, one-shot deal basis. Do not get yourself in a situation where all 4 or 5 years you're going to be dependent on a Sallie Mae or a City Assist or a SoFi loan. I just don't think that's I don't think that's fiscally prudent, put it that way. Okay, enough with that. Let's go to the next slide. Getting towards the end here. For many of you listening to my voice now, interested in your senior who is going off to school next year, but many of you have younger children at home. You might have an 8th grader sitting there or a 6th grader. And if you haven't started a college savings plan, I'm here to tell you, you should really seriously think about starting a college savings plan for those younger children who are still in the household. A little too late for your senior or your junior, but it's not too late for those younger students who were there. And NJ Best, which is one of the 529 plans, every state has a 529 plan. I think one of the things that helps with NJ Best is that for every year, after 2 years, that you save money in the NJ Best program, you can have a scholarship starting as little as $500, goes up to as much as $3,000 if you're in the program for 6 or more years. So not only are they saving and growing your money for you, you add that scholarship to the rate of return. I think you'll find that NJ Best is a good way of disciplining yourself and starting a 529 college savings plan. I must say, you do not have to stay with your state's 529 plan. If you study it and you think New York has a better one or Florida or Alaska has a better one, you can go with those. But the one through NJ Best, which is through HESA, I think does a very good job. You should look at that if you haven't done so already. Folks, always remember this. The way the financial aid system is set up, you will never get dollar for dollar from the FAFSA system what you can save for yourself. That's an important thing. I'm going to repeat it. You will never get dollar for dollar from the federal financial system versus what you save for yourself. So whether it's $1,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever you can save, you're absolutely helping yourself and your student. Absolutely helping them. You're not being punished. Because you'll never get it. Because what happens is when you go through the state and the federal program, you're going to get inundated with loans. You're much better off saving. So if you do have younger students at home, seriously think, if you haven't done so already, starting a 529 plan, and I think NJ Best can help you with that. Okay, next slide. Again, before I leave, all of my slides either explain the financial aid process or they gave you tools or websites to go to help. So I also wanted to give you the general websites and customer care numbers that you would need if questions arose. You're filing a FAFSA and you got confused. You need a question answered and nobody's right there to answer that question for you. You now have the websites you can correspond. You have a toll-free number that you can go to. You have everything you need for HESA services. And we can click it 2 more times. Michelle, let's click. We're going to stand. We have questions and our little man. So again, I hope this helped you. I hope I didn't go too long and bore the heck out of all of you. I hope this was vital information. And let me see if you have any questions for either myself or Caroline as far as EOF or the financial aid process is concerned. Take it away, Michelle.
So, Mr. Yacovelli and Mrs. Waters, I want to thank you guys so much for spending your time with us and giving us your valuable and invaluable information. We appreciate it, and we look forward to partnering with you in the future. And I guess we'll hang on for a few minutes, see if anybody has any questions. If anyone has questions you don't get a chance to answer, ask. You can always email your guidance counselor. Okay. Right. I haven't seen anything yet in the chat. So I'll just end the night and thank everyone for coming. And we'll be posting this online as well as Mr. Yacovelli and Mr. Waters' presentations.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
The New Jersey FAMS, after the FAFSA and you get onto New Jersey FAMS, is it the student that goes on there for the login and the ID or the parent?
It should be the student. Many times the student will share it with the parent, but the way it is set up for the student to create the username and password. Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. You have one child that did not use all of their 528, 529 funds. Can it be rolled over to another child?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
And then if it's rolled over to the other child's form, and let's say that child doesn't use it, it's still your money. There's people talking about penalties. They're going to tax you on that money because then it's not a 529. That's just part of your investment money, but it's not at a large amount. So, but yes, in answer to your question, if it's not used for child number 1, you can roll it into child number 2 or child number 3. And if even after that, it's not all used, it's still your money. And yes, you might get a slight tax on it because now it's investment money. It's not a college savings program anymore because you ran out of students.
And can it be used? It can be used for graduate school, right?
Oh yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I actually have a question. Believe it or not, I am a very organized person, but if you know that you had a 529, but you haven't gotten anything in the mail and you have no idea who owns this 529, do you have any idea where I can find it?
If you don't know who owns it, you've stumped me.
Okay.
You remember the 529s came out of some state. So you either started it with New Jersey or you started it with New York or you started it with Virginia. You have to at least know that. And then I can direct you to, the right people who will tell you what your account's doing. But you have to at least have that one basic knowledge. where
That's
you
easy.
initially started it, and then, yes, I can get you to them.
All right, cool. I'll email you. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions?
We all
No?
good?
Wow. Yep, we're all good. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at our next event.
Thank you for the
Thank you so
time.
much.
Have a
Thank you,
great
guys.
evening.
Good help. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.